Guys, what is a common complaint about the UN that people have had over the last 2 years during these crimes witnessed by mankind in Gaza by the Israeli state? A lot of talk, no action, right? Well, in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, South America, today and tomorrow, officials from over 20 nations, including the Titan of Asia, Zhongguo, is my mic recording? Yes, yes. From China, officials from China and 20 other countries will be attending for a summit for something unprecedented. Their mission? The largest coordinated international response to Israel's actions in Gaza. You heard that right. Action, finally, of some kind. This isn't just another diplomatic gathering. Oh, noses. We're talking planned action. Colombia and South Africa are co chairing what is called the Hague Group. And they've assembled, we'll talk about what that group is later. They've assembled countries from every continent, maybe not the Arctic and Antarctica, from every continent populated to move beyond statements to concrete action. Actually, Arctic is populated like Norway, Russia. Sorry. To move to concrete action. China's presence here is particularly striking. Beijing has been expanding its influence across Latin America, where Colombia is, through massive infrastructure investments and trade deals. And now it's talking about taking a stand on international law that directly challenges Western positions. The timing couldn't be more significant. This summit is happening today, just a few days after BRICS condemned Israeli and American attacks on Iran, calling them violations of international law. And now these global south led countries are talking about action. Talk's cheap after all. Talk's free, bruh. The US is 36 trillion in state debt, and they're still talking like they own the place, like they own the world. And not only are these countries taking action, we're witnessing a realignment where traditional Western allies like Ireland and Spain, they're in the West, are joining global South nations in demanding accountability. The leadership basically is shifting from the West to the global South, so that even Western countries are like, oh, that's actually a solid initiative. Should we join them? Yeah, some are joining. Right. So what are these actions that are being talked about? Because Mahfouz, you talk a lot, right? You talk a lot. You do all these little bits, but you don't actually give the news nowadays. It's getting annoying. Sorry. Okay, I'll give you the news. They're coordinating sanctions, arms embargoes, legal proceedings, potentially diplomatic initiatives. Sanction. I just said sanctions against Israel. I thought sanctions was a Western thing that is used to bully countries that really aren't doing anything wrong. They're just not falling in line with the Western narrative. No, turns out sanctions can be used the other way around as well. We haven't seen any yet, but talk is the first thing to action. Some of those attending countries, like Bangladesh, where my parents are from, Loki flex, Bangladesh doesn't even recognize Israel, right? Not a flex necessarily, unbiased and without the Western spin, right? Diplomatic steps. Taking diplomatic steps against Israel may be one of the most severe punishments because it might include severing ties with Israel and not recognizing the current Israeli government as legitimate. That would be very painful, especially for a state that always grapples with its own legitimacy, its own existence, and everything's a threat. Everything warrants a victim card. Pull out, the gold-plated, laminated victim card that the Israeli state has in his pocket always. Now, that's not being explicitly floated, this idea of delegitimizing the current Israeli administration. But I'm saying, as an option, as a diplomatic action, it's not unheard of. Like, for example, how Western countries currently don't recognize Afghanistan's Islamic Emirate as the legit government of Afghanistan because the US lost their war after 20 years and got salty. Now, South Africa, as we already know, has already taken actions against Israel in the International Court of Justice for genocide charges. Malaysia banned Israeli ships, fun fact, from its ports. You just don't come to our ports. We don't want you. Colombia cut diplomatic ties. Bangladesh had no diplomatic ties. Bro, beat that, right? On the Bangladeshi passport, it used to say before the Awami League government 15 years ago. Basically, the Bangladeshi passport, to simplify, and many times throughout history, likely to go back to it, it says this passport is valid for all countries except Israel. I don't know a bigger straight up, dig than that. Now, dozens of countries, including those attending the summit, have condemned in the strongest terms Israeli actions in Gaza, even if they haven't gone any further than those words of condemnation. That's what they've given at least, and that's more than, for example, the US or the UK or Germany or France, right? No further concrete action, but at least the words. Now, the Hague Group I mentioned earlier, what is this? This is a coalition of countries that wants to ensure enforcement of the ICC and ICJ rulings. Just to recap, ICC is when you target individuals. ICJ targets nations. So ICC, for example, there's an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu because obviously. ICJ, there's um, the proceedings that take the Israeli state to court basically and say what you're doing is unacceptable. Now, in particular, with regards to Palestine, is what the Hague group focuses on. They say our country is the coalition we're building here. We want to enforce the ICC and ICJ rulings on Israel and Palestine. Now, this group represents something entirely new in global politics, guys. It's a coalition spanning continents, united not by geography or ideology, but by commitment to international law. You would think that's quite legit, right? Wrong. The West is like, absolutely not. Hold my imbalanced scales. I'll try and justify opposing this international law enforcing coalition. Shockingly, right? The West is largely not interested in upholding international law in this case. Why not? Well, because it targets one of their mates. And they think international law is only to be followed by poor countries. Right? Ew, what's that, brother? Why are you applying that to me, brother? I'm America, brother. That's not how it works. We apply the rules to you. You know, it's a rules-based world order, yes. The rules are one set of rules for the West, one set of rules for the rest. Why are you messing with that? Why are you messing with it? Oh, Mohammed Hoblos is an absolute. Anyway, Colombian President Petro wrote in The Guardian newspaper that without decisive action, they risk turning the multilateral system into a talk shop that protects only privileged nations. He's talking about the West. What I just said, basically, using the West using international law only when it suits them and not using it when it doesn't. So he's calling the West out. He's saying what couldn't be said out loud before now, as Gen Z would say. He's saying the quiet part out loud. I don't know why Gen Z sounds like that, but whatever. It's a huge shift, what we're going through right now. This is new world order stuff. The unipolarity to multipolarity world order, the shift from away from the West. And the West, get this, it's rich. This is the statement from the West. Israel and the US, brace yourself. Israel and the US have condemned the summit in Bogota. What? Israel's condemning the summit that's supposed to enforce international law against Israel. No, no. Why? How could they? How could they condemn? Anyway, the US called it, Israel and the US called it an effort to, quote, I'm quoting, delegitimize Israel. Victim card, didn't I say you victim card? Victim card. And they called it a misuse of international law. Yeah, why are you using international law against us? I just covered this. International law is supposed to be used as a cudgel on the poor countries. Why are you using it against us? This is completely a misuse of international law. I set up the rules-based world order so I can sit at the top indefinitely, and you guys are shaking it up so we're all equal. We can't all be equal. It's, you know, some countries have to be more equal than others, no? I've completely lost it, guys. All right, for the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, I'm Muffles and you know where to find me. But I don't know, bro, guys. I'm going mad. Anyway, I'll keep you updated.